She was a hardworking young woman with big dreams for the future.
She wanted to be a successful businesswoman.
She was very ambitious.
She was just full of life, full of potential.
Until it all came to a sudden, shocking end.
My nephew texted me, "Have you heard from my mom?"
We didn't really know what was going on.
We get a knock on the door from 2 detectives.
Can we come in?
They told us that they found her.
Did a dark secret drive her to do the unthinkable?
The gunshot wound was to the left side of the head.
The gun was lying at her feet.
It appears to be a suicide.
No, this can't be true.
I never thought this shit here would go on.
Or did someone else pull the trigger?
My sister would have never, ever done this.
Who was that?
I would not believe that. I just wouldn't.
It's one thing to know something, but it's another to prove it.
May 9th, 2017. It's Tuesday evening in Mobile, Alabama, a city of 200,000, 2 hours east of New Orleans.
Mobile is small compared to some of your major cities like your Atlantas, your Houstons, Dallases, but it's a really big city right here on the water.
We have Mobile Bay on one side, and then we have the Gulf of Mexico on the other.
We're considered city. Most people think country, but for the most part, it's nice being quiet.
Even the 911 call that comes into Mobile police at 6:30 p.m. that evening seems to be no emergency.
The caller said the house across the street had been vacant for some time, but now there was a car parked behind it.
Yes, there's been a car that's been sitting out there all day long.
We're really big on community. We look out for each other.
If you can have an officer come and check it out for me.
They know there's normally not a car behind that house.
So the police came out to canvass the area.
But when they arrive, officers find more than just an abandoned car.
When the officers approached the vehicle, there appeared to be a person in the car.
A young woman reclining in the passenger seat.
To the officer, it looked as if she may have been asleep.
Ma'am?
But the woman isn't sleeping.
Ma'am?
They saw that the female had a gunshot wound to her head.
Her purse is still there with all of her belongings.
Based on the ID officers found in her purse, the woman was 27-year-old Chenise Sumter.
Chenise Sumter was a fun-loving young woman with a magnetic personality.
She was just a delight. We would laugh all the time. It was never a dull moment with her.
She loved to sing, she loved to dance, she loved to party.
Our favorite thing to do was probably just get in the car and just ride and maybe go to Louisiana, just to go on Bourbon Street, just to have fun.
But behind the singing and laughter, there were plenty of tears.
Her mother passed when she was 10 years old.
It's something very hard, especially when they're a young age, when they don't quite understand why it's my mom not gonna be here anymore.
Not that Chenise had much time to grieve.
Our mom passed when I was 2 years old, so she basically raised me.
She was the big sister, but she was also the mom too, especially when it came to Miracle. It was like Miracle was her baby because Miracle was so young when their mom passed.
We were just this tight, close family. She taught me how to drive a car. She bought my first 2 cars. She took me to get my first tattoo because I begged her to do it. She was just like a fun mom, big sister. I could come to her for anything. She was always there for me.
Even after Chenise had a child of her own.
She had a son when she was 18.
She loved him. That was her world. That was her heart.
Anything she could get for him, she would do that. Anytime she could spend with him, she was a good mom.
But she was always a single mom.
She was a beautiful girl, so it was not uncommon for her to have guy friends. But I don't think it was a thing where she really wanted a serious relationship.
She never really spoke about marriage. She has a son, so she just wanted to be able to take care of her and her son. She was very focused on that more than she was focused on dating and a man.
All right, have a good day. Hug, what about my hug?
Maybe she was just waiting for the right man.
Being a single mother, it would definitely be something to look forward to have a partner, to have someone she could depend on.
When she meet that man that just makes her want to settle down, then that would have been the one.
Or maybe that man had been there all along.
Chenise and Peter Gale had known each other for a while, and after about 5 years, that's when a relationship started between the two.
Peter was charming. He made her feel like her world was the only thing that mattered.
I want to take you out. Just the two of us.
Really?
Yeah. Really want to get to know you.
Okay, let's do it.
When I first met Peter, I was like, this is not Chenise type. Where did he come from? But she was happy.
She wanted to have someone she could share her life with, who would be there and stay there.
Soon it looked as if Chenise was finally settling down.
As far as connections, Chenise and Peter had something completely different.
Our friends can only give us so much. We need that companionship in our personal life.
A new relationship gives you the feeling of hope, and she felt that he would be a great component to the new life she was building.
But a promising relationship wasn't the only thing giving Chenise new hope.
Chenise mentioned to us that she may be moving to Jacksonville, Florida for a job as an insurance adjuster.
I'm so nervous. I was supposed to hear something by 6.
Well, why don't you check your email? Come on, it won't hurt to check.
Okay, if you say so. Oh my gosh, I got it.
I was happy for her because I knew that insurance adjusting was very lucrative, and that was Chenise's goal, to create a lot of income so she can do different things for her and her family.
Chenise is thinking everything is lining up at this point. She's got her man, got her family, getting ready to start this new job. So it was an exciting time for her.
And on Monday, May 8th, 2017, the only thing she needed to make that future a reality was a quick trip across the state line.
In order to work in Jacksonville, she had to go and get some fingerprints done for her Florida adjuster's license.
But now, just hours later, police have found her car parked behind a vacant house on the outskirts of Mobile.
Inside of the car was Chenise's body.
She had a fatal gunshot wound to the head.
There was the smell of gunpowder. There was blood everywhere in the vehicle.
There was a gun found at her feet.
Looks like it fell right after the gun was triggered.
It appears to be a suicide.
Chenise Sumter had just received a promising job offer that would take the single mom far from her hometown of Mobile, Alabama.
I got it.
Chenise was a go-getter. She was a hustler. So when she got the offer to go work in Jacksonville, Florida, she was ready.
It was a better opportunity for her and her son. So she was very happy.
She had a boyfriend, she had her son, she had a job, and life was moving forward for her.
Instead, her life has come to a sudden end behind a vacant house on the outskirts of Mobile.
When the officers got there, it was observed that Chenise was in the passenger seat of the car with a gunshot wound to her head.
There was a revolver found on the floor of the passenger seat in front of Chenise's body. It just seemed as if she had done this to herself.
Her purse, phone, and wallet were all in the car.
The keys were still in the ignition.
But was her death a suicide? Some details about the scene troubled detectives.
Most people that have killed themselves in cars don't take the time to remove themselves from the driver's seat, go to the passenger side, and then shoot themselves. They're just gonna go ahead and do it.
Think she's left-handed?
Could be.
If you're going to hold the gun, you would hold it and shoot with your dominant hand.
Which would be awkward to do in the driver's seat if you were left-handed.
Her arm would have been cramped against the door or the window.
Or is there another, more obvious explanation?
Someone could have driven Chenise out to the scene, shot her, and then walked away.
It doesn't really change anything because we still follow through on every case as if it is a homicide until we get to that fact. But it was unclear whether or not this was a suicide or the homicide.
All detectives know for sure is that whoever pulled the trigger, the shooting occurred in the car.
There was blood splatter on the door.
There was the aroma of gunpowder in the car.
While the coroner's crew prepares Chenise's body for transport, detectives talk to the neighbor who initially called 911.
So we're just gonna ask you a couple questions. Can you tell me a little bit about what you saw?
She said the car was there when she woke up that morning.
When I woke up early in the morning, I noticed a car sitting outside of the abandoned house across the street.
After it had sat there all day, she decided to call the police.
The person called and said there was an abandoned vehicle parked behind an abandoned house.
If you can have an officer come and check it out for me.
She didn't know there was a body in the car.
You didn't hear the gunshot?
Not at all.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
After talking to the neighbor, it's time for detectives to contact Chenise's family.
Now's our time to start building up any kind of background information we can on her.
One of the first things detectives learn is that the family reported Chenise missing just a few hours earlier.
They had not heard from her or been able to make contact with her for over a day.
She had been traveling out of town for a work appointment, but was supposed to be back by now.
I was at work and my nephew texted me, "Hey Miracle, have you heard from my mom?" And that was odd. I immediately called her and I texted her, no response.
After reporting her missing, Chenise's family gathered at her grandmother's house.
We didn't really know what was going on, but nobody had talked to her, and that was unusual.
We're all sitting in the living room. What are we gonna do? Where have you looked? Who have you called?
The family is still considering their next move when there's a knock at the door.
My sister, she answered the door very shakenly.
Can we come in?
The knock is from 2 detectives, and it was surreal. It was like, what are they about to say?
So I'm sorry to tell you, but we found Chenise today. We found her body.
God. Oh, my Lord. You never had that feeling that something's happening, but you can't believe it's happening?
The entire house was just flipped upside down.
Everybody was crying and hollering and screaming and no, this can't be true.
Even when they said that they found a body, I still didn't believe it. Honestly, when we went to view her body for the first time, I was hoping that it wasn't her. I was still in denial that she was dead. I was just like, okay, maybe this is someone different. Someone different is gonna be laying on this table.
Despite the family's overwhelming grief, detectives ask Chenise's sisters if they can come down to the station for a brief statement.
We asked them to come back with us to headquarters so we could just sit down and try to gain as much information as we could about Chenise.
I was able to just muster myself up enough to talk to the detective.
Once at police headquarters, They tell detectives that Chenise had driven to Pensacola, Florida on Monday.
It was for her new job. They need her fingerprints.
Sounds like a background check.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Pensacola was only an hour from Mobile, but Chenise had left her son with her grandmother while she was gone.
Was she planning on staying the night?
I'm not sure.
All her sisters knew is that after heading to Pensacola, Chenise had gone silent.
My sister called Peter and said, "Hey, where's Chenise?" Peter said, "I don't know, Miracle."
Who's Peter?
Her boyfriend, Peter Gales.
Did he go to Pensacola with her?
Probably.
I'm not 100% sure, but he had the car more than her.
But Chenise's sisters say they are sure of one thing.
My sister would have never, ever, ever done this to herself.
That's not who she was.
She had sisters that loved her and her own son, so I just don't think she would have done that.
She wouldn't do that to her son.
I knew that it was a murder.
Chenise Sumter's family is convinced that the gunshot wound that killed the 27-year-old single mom wasn't self-inflicted.
I would not believe that. She was not the type of person that would have a reason to commit suicide.
She would never take her life. It was a homicide and it was not a suicide.
Did Chenise have a secret she'd kept from her family?
People have their own emotional trauma, and they might not share because of fear of what family members might think of them. Family might not have been in tune to everything that she might have been going through.
Was it possible something had gone wrong with her new job?
The sister had told us that the day before, Chenise had driven over to Pensacola for a background check for her adjuster's license.
Or was it possible Chenise hadn't been alone?
According to her sisters, Chenise's boyfriend, Peter Gales, may have gone with her to Pensacola.
That was useful to us because we knew once we find Peter, we can narrow down the time frames of when he last saw her and whether or not he was with her the day before.
Again, I'm sorry for your loss. My partner will see you out.
The next morning, when detectives bring him in for questioning, Chenise's boyfriend had already heard the news that she's dead.
That's why we're here to talk about exactly what happened. I don't know how I feel. I love my best friend now.
Of course, he's distraught. The love of his life is gone.
He does inform them that they did go to Florida together.
We went to Pensacola like that morning. We was in Pensacola around about 11.
She was excited about the new job.
Everything was fine and dandy.
But something happened on the way back to Mobile that night.
Yeah, we get hungry, so we go get something to eat.
They're in the drive-thru and a phone call comes in.
And it's another woman calling Peter.
Hey, baby.
Peter says in his rush to decline the call, he accidentally answered.
What the?
Don't trip, it ain't nobody.
Who is that?
Don't start, Chenise.
These newer cars, your phone can hook up to the stereo.
That phone call is from his side piece.
My girl skirts on me.
Peter's been messing around, and this is the first time Chenise is finding this information out.
That did not go well with Chenise at all.
She was so ecstatic. She was so excited about the possibility of her new job and the possibility of her new life. And then Peter gets a phone call, and it pissed her off.
How have I built this life with this man who has been cheating, been living a double life, been lying to me all this time?
So she get mad.
What you mean don't trip? She talking about she needs you.
Oh, don't trip.
Who is that? Don't tell me not to trip.
She kind of like she can't deal with it. So I'm like, well, just drop me out.
Get me out of here.
Peter says he drove to his mother's house, got out of the car, and gave the keys to Chenise.
I get her to drop me off, and that's the...
When she drops you off, you get out of the car, she drives off. Do you have any idea where she goes?
I have no clue.
Peter does say that he tried to make sure Chenise was all right.
He started trying to text her, trying to call her to make amends with her.
Peter says she wasn't responding.
Did she say anything about hurting herself?
She didn't have before, but not that.
What have she said before?
I just want to kill myself.
Why is she so that?
She wish she was with her mom. Her mom dead.
Peter said he never thought she was serious about it.
It leaves you wondering, what happened? Did this argument truly lead to them killing themselves?
Detectives have their doubts.
Let's stay with the story. So she drops you off over there.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
He said he spent the night at his mother's house.
You didn't go anywhere else?
Nah.
Peter says he spent much of the rest of the night doing damage control.
I was texting her the phone. And then...
Did she text you back?
Nah, I don't get no reply. But I'm thinking I'm on Do Not Disturb. You know what I'm saying?
Now, at this point, I said, do you mind? We just want to make a copy of your messages and download the copy of your phone for the case. Is that all right with you? And he said, yeah, that's fine.
When detectives look through the data, it matches what he'd told them.
It shows he had been trying to text Chenise after the argument happened.
Chenise wasn't responding.
Peter's mother also confirms his story when detectives follow up with her.
Peter's mom does confirm that he did get dropped off that evening.
However, she couldn't say with certainty that it was Chenise who dropped off Peter.
What she saw were some headlights out of her window. She didn't see the car, she didn't see Chenise. But she's like, my son could not have done anything. He's innocent.
They'd basically ruled out their only possible suspect.
And when the autopsy report comes in, it will eliminate another theory.
What it indicates is that there's no way that the wound was self-inflicted.
This was not a suicide.
Chenise's sister was right. It was murder.
Based on the autopsy report, detectives in Mobile, Alabama have definitively ruled out suicide as the cause of death for 27-year-old Chenise Sumter.
The autopsy report provided information that was inconsistent with suicide.
Where the bullet entered, it was impossible for her to have shot herself in the head in that angle.
The angle of the bullet wound isn't all that rules out suicide either.
Chenise's hand didn't have any evidence of gunpowder. If you use a gun and shoot the gun, there would be residue on your hand.
The autopsy findings are a vindication for Chenise's family, who never believed her death was the result of suicide.
She would tell you how she felt. She was very verbal, so I just wouldn't have believed it.
I had no doubt in my mind that it was a homicide.
Which leaves detectives with one big question to answer.
If it was staged to look like a suicide, then who's responsible?
From the information we have, the likely suspect is Peter. He was the one that was with her.
But he's already been ruled out.
Detectives had checked his phone, which showed he was being honest about the call from his other girlfriend and the argument that ensued with Chenise.
Peter's mom did verify that Peter did come home the night of the incident.
There were several follow-up texts to Chenise begging for forgiveness.
However, the admitted argument does give detectives one more lead.
Had Ashley eliminated her rival?
When detectives bring her in for questioning, Ashley starts by asking why they want to talk to her.
I heard she killed herself.
Where'd you hear that?
That's what everybody's saying.
She was rather casual about the fact that Chenise was no longer alive. She didn't give the impression that she felt sorry or anything that is typical for someone who hears that someone's life has ended.
When you interview a lot of people and you've worked a lot of cases, you start to pick up on people's body language.
So no tears for Chenise?
I never met her.
She tells detectives, I don't know that chick. I don't know her. She means nothing to me. I just had this thing going on with Peter.
Chenise was with Peter in the car when you called Monday.
Did that make you mad?
Oh, I was mad, but not at her.
She was mad about the fact that Peter had blew her off, but she wasn't upset that he had another girl. Ashley says that hers and Peter's relationship was just off and on. It was nothing serious.
It was almost as if Ashley just knew her role. She wasn't emotionally attached to the situation.
So no revenge?
Oh, I got even with him.
Ashley tells them, I was upset, so I decided to call up another friend of mine.
According to Ashley, her other friend had stayed the night too.
She wanted to make Peter feel jealous, to show him that he's not the only option.
Thank you, Ashley.
After talking to Ashley, the investigators check out her alibi for Monday night.
They reached out to the guy she said she was with. He confirmed that he spent the night with her and didn't leave until Tuesday.
Ashley couldn't have been the person to do this.
And detectives are no closer to finding who did.
Nobody witnessed an incident occur. Nobody could tell us a description of who the person was. And we're talking about, at this point in time, we're behind on the investigation because she's been out there for about a day by the time we got called.
But soon after talking to Ashley, detectives receive another call.
Homicide.
The caller told detectives she was a coworker of Chenise's.
She provides some very vital information for this case.
There's something you ought to know about Peter.
She tells them that Peter was controlling.
Peter would call and text Chenise all day long.
But that wasn't the worst of his behavior.
Sometimes she would come to work with bruises.
She said the relationship was becoming super, super abusive.
A co-worker of Chenise Sumter has contacted detectives with some disturbing information about Chenise's boyfriend, Peter Gales.
Chenise's friend didn't exactly say that Peter was violent, but it was enough information to allude to the fact that this was an unhealthy relationship.
Had that unhealthy relationship ended with Chenise's murder?
At least 10 to 15% of the cases that we work are involving domestic violence. And there's always a history there of things that build up to it. There's always signs.
I knew something wasn't right.
She said Chenise has been wearing makeup. Chenise was so beautiful, gorgeous skin, no flaws. And for her to just start wearing makeup out of the blue, it was odd because what are you covering? What are you hiding?
Chenise's coworker thinks she knows the answer.
Chenise had shown up to work with bruises on her.
Did she tell you what happened?
She said she fell.
It would seem as if she was making up stories about what truly happened.
However, according to her coworker, Chenise had finally come to a decision.
Chenise did want to end the relationship.
She was done with him and was over him.
And she'd found a way out.
Chenise's coworker provides the information that her job in Florida was actually an opportunity for Chenise to get away from Peter.
She did take the steps to leave him, but she couldn't quite completely get away.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Chenise's situation is one detectives have seen plenty of times before.
Domestic violence does not discriminate. You can be any age, race, sex, sexuality, financial status, education level to be a victim or a perpetrator. If you are in a situation where you feel like you're scared to get out, there is help. You just need to talk to someone.
There's always people that we talk to in these investigations who say, she knew this was gonna happen. They've threatened me, they've done this, but it's like they're stuck in this cycle of not being able to free themselves from these situations.
In domestic violence, there's typically a honeymoon phase and then abuse, and it's this cyclical effect.
I see too many times where people laugh and play about people fighting and getting back together, fighting again and getting back together.
But eventually, someone says enough.
And once that partner has had enough, they begin to secretly plot their way out.
It is the most dangerous stage of the actual abuse because a lot of times women or even men are not tapping into those resources to see about getting the help that they need to get out of the abuse.
You should really seek help and try to get out before you end up like one of the millions of victims that have ultimately been murdered.
If Chenise would have let us know what was going on, I think she'll still be here. We're a tight family and we love one another and we don't like each other to be hurt. We would have got him help. We would have got her out of that. We would have.
I feel like she never told us because she was ashamed of what she was going through. It was nothing really for us to do because with toxic relationships or abusive relationships, no matter how much you insert yourself into someone else's business, they're not gonna break up until they're ready, until the victim is really ready to go.
Had Chenise been murdered by her boyfriend because she tried to leave him? It seems plausible to detectives.
Peter had used his mother as his alibi, and that was less than airtight.
In searching through police records, detectives find proof of Peter's alleged abuse.
I don't understand. What's the issue now?
4 days prior to the homicide, Peter Gales and Chenise had an argument.
Maybe I don't want you to come with me.
Where he busted her lip and she called the police.
It's over, she's about to put him in jail.
But when the police arrived, Peter was gone, and Chenise had lost her nerve.
She did make a report. However, in that report, she did try to protect him by giving some wrong information about him.
Okay, what's his name?
His name is Peter Smith.
Basically letting him run free.
Obviously, she was scared about the situation that she was in, but at the same time, she was scared of him and didn't want him to get in trouble.
Now a murder suspect, Peter is in far more trouble. And when detectives subpoena his phone records, the evidence against him becomes stronger.
When the officers pulled the phone records, they saw that, hey, there's a phone number on here that's not on this phone.
We could tell Peter had gone through and deleted text messages out of his phone.
The deleted messages went to a man named Isaiah Stewart.
What was the conversation that Peter and Isaiah had that he didn't want police to know about?
In an interrogation room, Isaiah admits that Peter had contacted him on the night of the murder.
Isaiah says that the conversation was about how mad Chenise got about the call from Ashley.
And I told him he should have been more careful with his phone.
That's funny to you?
I mean, not before I knew what happened.
Isaiah says that he heard that Chenise killed herself.
Peter tell you that?
Nah. I mean, that's what everybody was saying.
The police informed him that no, Chenise did not kill herself.
Wait, really?
She was murdered. And we have reason to believe Peter was responsible.
Hey, no way.
But when detectives keep pressing, Isaiah starts to sweat.
There were definitely a lot of signs when talking to him that he was not being honest.
Isaiah was like, whoa, I'm getting in way over my head with this.
Look, I had no idea.
About what?
About what all he did.
He denies that he knows anything about what happened.
All Isaiah can confirm is that he gave Peter a ride.
He said Peter texted him, told him where to meet.
He picked him up on the side of the road, not too far from the crime scene.
He then takes him to his mother's house and drops him off.
It's not what Peter told detectives.
The story that Peter gave the police was that Chenise dropped him off at his mom's house.
Free to go.
Now that detectives can place Peter near the crime scene, They ask him to come in for another interview.
And we're not accusing you of anything. You know, obviously we're investigating.
At this point, we're just playing along like he's a victim, that his girlfriend was killed by somebody or killed herself.
But it isn't long before the gloves come off.
We shifted the interview into confronting him on everything that he told us.
Everything that's coming out is not what you're saying, okay? And we already know that this is what happened. We already know, okay?
They tell him, Isaiah let us know that he picked you up from near the crime scene and dropped you off at your mother's house.
I want you to be honest with me and just tell me what happened.
Faced with what Isaiah told the investigators, Peter starts to break.
What happened? Yeah, I know what the argument. You don't want to relive it. We got to, man. We got to relive it. She killed us, so now.
Peter says that Chenise became just outraged and angry when Ashley comes about into the picture with the phone call.
It's kind of something that's been building up over the last couple of days. Been building up for a long time. She was just tired of the room.
But Peter says he never expected what happened next.
Peter says that Chenise grabbed the gun that he kept in his glove box.
He did admit that it was his gun.
She grabbed the gun so quick and she went arguing, going crazy. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do.
He claimed it all happened so fast, there was no way to stop her.
The next thing I know, boom.
She grabbed his gun and shot herself in the head.
But detectives already know it didn't happen that way.
The autopsy had already ruled out suicide.
What happened? What was going on when you shot her? Be honest with us, man. What happened in that car? Man, honestly, I just said, I don't know. But I never wish nothing like that on her.
He kept saying he didn't do it.
What was she talking about? Are you talking about breaking up, separation? What were you mad about at that point? It wasn't no biggie. Like I got a lot of different girls.
He denies that he killed Chenise. The detectives do not believe that that is the case.
Finally, after several hours of questioning, Peter tries another new story. But is what he tells them the truth?
She tried to jump on me.
He claimed that during their argument over the phone call, she grabbed the gun and attacked him.
He tried to take it away.
They struggle with the weapon.
She was trying to jump over by me, like trying to fight.
The gun accidentally goes off.
Peter Gales has just admitted to police in Mobile, Alabama, that he was with his girlfriend, Chenise Sumter, when she was shot. He insists her death wasn't murder.
Peter says that Chenise's death was an accident.
He indicates that after the call came in from Ashley, him and Chenise get into this intense argument. And during the argument, Chenise opens the glove box and pulls out the .38 revolver.
Chenise, what are you doing?
Rather with his hand.
Peter begins to push her away, shoving her off, trying to keep himself safe.
He said that they were struggling over the murder weapon and it accidentally went off.
I look, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Oh my God, I see this hole right here.
Peter admits that once the incident occurred, he was shocked. He was confused.
I'm just knowing, like, everybody don't think I killed you.
So he tried to make it go away.
He drove her all the way down to the abandoned house and parked the car.
What'd you do from there? How'd you leave? And be honest with me, man.
All right.
Peter admits that he made a call to Isaiah to pick him up.
He had no clue what was going on. He had no clue.
Detectives suspect that may be the case, but they have no doubt that Peter is lying about the shooting.
We believe that he intentionally shot her in the head and killed her.
Once the interview is over, detectives place Peter under arrest for murder.
When he was taken into custody, he didn't have any remorse for it. The only remorse he had was that he got caught.
Now we just need complete justice and get him sentenced for what he did to my sister.
When Peter goes on trial on May 24th, 2021, the family is eager for justice, but the hurt and pain continue.
We wasn't there when it happened, but when you go through a murder trial, you relive it. We seen and heard things that we didn't know.
It was hard for them to have to relive everything that occurred. There was a lot of stuff like pictures that they had never seen prior to the trial.
The family was also shocked by the details of the abuse Chenise suffered prior to the murder.
What's the issue now?
It's a lot that she endured with him, and we as family didn't know she was going through that.
But worst of all is Peter Gales calmly sitting at the defendant's table.
You could tell that he was not grieving for her. He was not sad that she was gone.
He didn't have any emotion, no compassion. He didn't show any sorrow or nothing. I mean, you murder someone and you just sit there like a monster.
He looked at his family, spoke to his mother and his sister, but he never looked at us. It made me sick to my stomach. I got physically sick when I seen him.
The prosecutor begins by explaining what triggered the argument that led to Chenise's death.
Peter was driving and his phone was connected to the Bluetooth. A call came through. It was from a woman.
Peter, who the hell is that? Who is that?
Don't start, Chenise.
Imagine being Chenise in that moment, listening to another woman booty call her man. It had to be pretty galling.
But it was also an opportunity.
You know what? Get me out of here. I'm done. I'm not doing this.
Chenise had been looking to get out of the relationship, and this must have looked like the perfect excuse to end things.
Pull over right now. Let me out. I'm not playing with you, Peter. If she really needs you, then maybe you shouldn't come to Florida.
Oh, that's how you feel?
At that point, she probably had told him something along the lines of, I'm done with you, this is over with, and that enraged him.
I'm done.
Oh, you done?
Yeah, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
In a moment of rage, Peter pulls out the .38 revolver.
Peter.
And then he shot her in the head.
After she was dead, Peter drove south out of town to dump the car and the body.
He abandoned the car behind an empty house with Chenise still in the passenger seat. And then he called his friend, Isaiah Stewart, to drive him to his mother's house.
He did everything he could to distance himself from it.
He sent her fake text messages to make it seem like they weren't together.
He also sent messages designed to make it appear like she'd killed herself.
He sent text messages basically saying, don't hurt yourself like you threatened to do, so that it would make us believe that she was suicidal.
The medical examiner had ruled out suicide, so Peter's defense attorney is forced to fall back on what he'd eventually admitted to the police.
The defense attempted to use Peter's story of it being accidental.
The defense is trying to spin the case as if Peter was trying to keep Chenise from shooting him, and so the gun went off.
But in closing, the prosecution says the evidence leaves no doubt that Peter had intentionally killed Chenise.
All of Peter's actions were very deliberate so that he wouldn't be seen as the person who committed this crime.
After their deliberations, the jury sees what Peter had tried so hard to conceal.
Peter Gales was found guilty of murder.
At sentencing, I spoke on the stand and said, if he get out of jail, he's gonna do it again. So please do not let this man out on the streets again. And the judge ultimately gave him life in prison.
I was just relieved that justice was served. He's doing his time, and I thank the judge and the jury simply because he's paying for what he did to her, because a lot of cases don't end like that.
Not that any amount of prison time can make up for what Peter did.
You took her away from us, and she's never coming back, so it'll never be the same.
It doesn't get easier. Most people say it gets easier, it really doesn't.
I'm still mad, still depressed, still have anxiety. And these are things that I'm going to have to deal with the rest of my life.
But no one has more to deal with than the person who lost the most.
The ultimate tragedy is that Chenise's son is now in the same predicament that Chenise experienced as a young child.
She was young when her mom passed away, and now her son has to grow up without a mom.
She can't see her son graduate from college. She can't see him go to the prom. She can't meet his first girlfriend.
It's an absence those who loved Chenise will always feel.
I just miss her presence. I think we take stuff for granted.
The world is missing a sister, a mother, a friend, a cousin, just a sweet, kind, genuine soul.